Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Our guest today is Elizabeth Batalla. I am excited to have this conversation. We are going to talk about leveling up in your life and in your business, one of my very favorite topics. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thank you for having me, Alicia. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fellow coach, also found out you are a hypnotherapist. How fun. Let's start by talking a little bit, though, about your business and what it is that you do.
In my business, it's called the Institute for Achievement and Excellence, and I help women level up fairly quickly, level up across 9 life areas because it's based on a framework. And that level up process is to help them, better function in their lives and also in their business or in their corporate profession.
Now, you mentioned these different areas in life. So let's dig into that a little bit. So we do have a mix of men and women who are listening, but even the men have women in their lives. And so this might be a little bit of an educational moment for some of them who are listening as well. But what are these different areas that you're referring to?
So when it comes to leveling up, Alicia, I look at it as, I take a holistic approach to it because when we think about leveling up, if we think just about our finances and we're not healthy, we don't feel well. If we think about, our health, but we don't have time to spend with family and friends, it doesn't feel right. So when I speak about leveling up, I look at things in a holistic way. Now, what does holistic actually mean? It's based on a framework called the three forces in achieving excellence. And in those three forces, the first force is identity, which deals with the person. The second force is connections, which deals with relationships. And the third force is status, that deals with the person's standard of living. Now, within each of those forces, there's 3 life buckets that help someone level up within that force. So, for example, the identity, I look at personal brand, the person's demeanor, and their personal style. When we look at connections, I look at their physical health, mental health, and emotional health. And then status, I look at how they navigate their business or their professional world, how they handle their finances, and then finally, how they set themselves up for the future. So it truly is a holistic experience.
Let's talk a little bit about how a lot of people are approaching leveling up and goal setting, which is usually very one-dimensional. Like, I want to increase my income. I want to take this next step in my business. And there is that negative side effect often with the way that people are pursuing growth in a specific area in their life or business, and they're neglecting the other areas of their life and business. And I think that a lot of people who have achieved big goals, maybe they have grown their business to a certain level. I hear this frequently with people who are, say, really aggressively growing their business, and they go maybe to multi-7 figures, but they are so burnt out. They are depleted. They're mentally and emotionally sort of a bit of a mess because they are not attending to those other areas in their life. And then you've got these sort of proponents out there that are saying you've got to be so obsessed, so focused on just that one goal to the exclusion of everyone or everything else. And then people are experiencing health issues and relationship issues and all of these other negative things. And it's my understanding and my belief and what I've seen, it doesn't have to be that way. So I'd love your perspective on that.
Alicia, I completely agree with you. I mean, I could not have said it better myself. The downfall with focusing on any one thing and everything else falling apart is that the one thing that you focus on, you end up losing it because everything else has fallen apart. So if you earn 7 figures and you're completely burnt out, you may have to take that money and spend it on your health, or you may lose your family as a result of not being there for them sufficiently. Now, when we talk about all of these different areas, what I don't want people to feel is overwhelmed. I'm not talking here about perfection. It's not about perfection. It's not about hitting a 10 every single day of your life in every single area. It's about having a touch point in any one of the 9 areas or how many ever areas you deem important to you, whether it be over a week or over a month. It's about finding the balance that works for you so that when you do achieve that 7 figures, you have your family around you, you have your health, you have what it takes to continue to thrive and to continue to be the best that you can be. So it's not about perfection. It, sorry, excuse me about that. It's not about perfection. It's about excellence. And excellence is simply doing the best you can with what you have in the way that suits you. And
I
that is what it's
love
all
that.
about.
So good. And the fact that you called it out, it doesn't have to be overwhelming. That's one of the reasons that people don't achieve their goals and
Mm,
dreams, that they don't even take action on their goals and dreams, is because they get this skewed idea that they have to be like superhuman, or that they have to do something that in their mind just isn't believable and attainable. And so what we're talking about here is really, you use the word holistic, which is such a
mm,
beautiful way of explaining it, but it's really practical. It's
mm.
about taking care of all of you and all of the things that are important to you in a really reasonable way while being focused on your big vision goals.
Absolutely. The thing is, what I say to people is your steps do not need to be grand to be great. Small steps, consistent small steps can take you further than you can imagine. So if you are a single parent and you have health challenges and you do want to start a business, don't set yourself up for failure by saying, I'm going to spend 3 hours or 4 hours on my business every day because that is what it takes to be successful. If you don't have 4 hours in the day to allocate to your business, you don't have 4 hours in a day. So set yourself up for success. Look at what you have. Be realistic with your personal resources. And your personal resources, in the way I look at things, it spans 3 areas: your time, your energy, and the level of finances that you have. Okay. And based on those, then you allocate, if you have 1 hour, if you don't have a lot of finances to throw at someone to help them, to help for them to help you in your business, then be realistic about what you can achieve and don't overwhelm yourself with it, because what happens is when people become overwhelmed, what do? They do nothing. They stop. They stop taking action, or they take action from a place of desperation. And as a result, a lot of the decisions that are made may not necessarily be the correct decisions to be made. So this is why, taking a step back to move 5 steps forward is usually the best way.
It's powerful, very practical
Yeah.
advice. We're not talking about something that is outside of, our ability to grasp.
Mm,
So what I found, and I have a feeling you see this with your clients as well, is that sometimes our tripping points are these sort of nonsensical, self-imposed limiting beliefs that we have about how we have to do things in this way that is maybe incongruent with our self-image, or like
mm,
you had mentioned, the example of believing that you have to put in 4 hours a day, when maybe that's not only unreasonable, but it's unnecessary to
mm.
start to get some momentum and traction. So I'd love to segue a little bit and talk about some of those stumbling blocks, those mental stumbling blocks that perhaps you frequently see in your clients, ways that they are holding themselves back and need to change their mindset in order to start to get that positive momentum towards the achievement of those goals and that balance in their life.
That's a really good question, and there's so many variables to that. But the one thing that stands out for me is people waiting for the right moment to take that step or to take that leap. There will never be the correct moment. It's called life. There will always be something that will happen that will make that moment not exactly the right moment to take that step. But the thing is, when someone takes that step anyway, whether they take that step over fear, whether they take that step, to stamp out whatever their situation is, but by taking that step may open doors that were not previously open had that step not been taken. So this is why I say to people, yes, do it in a way that doesn't jeopardize your standard of living if your family is dependent on you. Because I'm not saying, look, walk away from your job and go into your business full time. That may not be a choice that you could make at this point in time. Coming back again to being realistic with your time, your energy, and your finances and your level of commitment. If it is, you have to have a full-time job while you're building your business, that's the situation you're in, fine. But start from there. Don't wait. And that is one of the things that I've found that, hold people back, that fear of just starting. It's the hardest point, but once you get going, it becomes easier and easier. I guarantee it.
Well, and we see that at different stages too. So when we are going back to that original subject of up leveling, we are always up leveling. I should say, those of us who are entrepreneurial are oftentimes always up leveling because some people are perfectly complacent with their more typical lifestyle. But when we are going through that up leveling in our life, in our business, it could even be your personal health goals, whether that means I am going to embrace this new healthier lifestyle. We have that tendency to come head to head with the fear or the resistance or the self-doubt or whatever it is. And a lot of people keep putting off their goals and their dreams because of those things. And I don't know if you agree with this or not, but my experience with clients is if we can do some of that mindset work first before you take that step, you're less likely to self-sabotage. You don't encounter the obstacles that are created within the mind, as well as what we tend to manifest when we are taking action from a place of fear or self-doubt or really, really, really strong resistance. And while you may not have it 100% dialed in, you may not have 100% belief in yourself, you have enough belief that you're willing to start to take those steps. And then the belief level grows as you are moving in the direction of that dream, that desire.
Exactly that, Alicia. The thing is, whether that first step is, hiring a coach or speaking to someone like yourself who can help, that individual, that person with that mindset, just to make that initial start. As you said, when you make that initial start, then the momentum builds. And, yes, there will be obstacles that will continue to come your way because, again, that's life. But by building that momentum, it becomes easier to at least address and handle because you become more and more comfortable with challenge. You become more and more comfortable with change. And as a result, it only fuels you to do more, to want to do more, to move towards doing more. So yes, I completely agree with that.
So good. All right. So now I want to actually shift the focus a little bit to you as the business owner. And I would love it if you'd be willing to share with us a little bit about your own journey and if there was a specific mindset challenge that you personally had to overcome in order to get to where you are today.
Of course. I I have been in the corporate space for over 30 years before I left, and I created my own business in the heights of the the pandemic in 2020. And in terms of my own challenges, there have been many, but mainly in working in a male-dominated environment or environments, I had to work twice as hard, sometimes three times as hard to get the same level of recognition. And I remember there was one point where I was training in IT systems, and we're talking, intricate server configuration and router configuration, and it was really much a very male-dominated area. And a gentleman walked in to the training program, saw that I was training it, and immediately walked out and asked for his money back because a female was training at that level. And I think that was a big learning curve for me because I could have said to myself, oh, I'm not going to do this anymore and allow it to get me down. But that was one opinion. And in my classroom, I had 15 other men and women waiting for my knowledge, waiting for me to assist them, waiting to hear what I had to say, waiting for me to add value to whatever path they wanted to take. And that learning curve, that learning stuck with me, which is, as business people, as entrepreneurs out there, not everyone will want what you have to offer. You may not always get the rave reviews that you're looking to get, even though you've pulled out all the stops to deal with a particular client. All I will say is, don't let that one client or that one person or those few people get you down, make you want to stop, make you give up, make you doubt yourself. Because for every one person, I guarantee that there will be 10, 15, 20, 50 people waiting and ready to receive what it is you have to offer. So focus on those. Focus on those people, not the ones. Learn from the ones who walk away. Maybe learn why they have walked away, so that if there is something that you can do better or tweak, then you can. But do not let that one person or those few people dictate the value that you can bring to many, many more.
Thank you for sharing that. It was
A
so
pleasure.
insightful and incredibly valuable because we've all experienced the naysayers.
Yes.
Some of us maybe more than others, some people certainly more than others, partially based on beliefs and sometimes based on the fact that we're stepping outside of some of the norms, some of the old, kind of conventional accepted ways of thinking. I was just talking with a client this morning in a session, and revisiting my beginning when I had my tiny little EFT practice back in 2006 in a really small little part of central Wisconsin, and how freaking weird I was in such a I don't want to say closed-minded because that's an overgeneralization, but certainly, it wasn't like one of the more expansive areas in the world where people are super interested in these different alternative, things. It kind of defied the status quo, we could say. And it takes courage and it takes an inner belief. Even though I didn't have a lot of belief in myself at that time, I had enough to know that what I was doing mattered and it was valuable and it was helpful. And even though it was really outside of a lot of people's comfort zones and really outside of the box, you've got to trust your own inner guidance, your own heart's desire, your own calling to do the thing that you are being inspired to do. And when you have those naysayers, when you have the closed-minded man, right, who is still thinking, thoughts from generations prior, that you recognize it has nothing to do with you. Just keep doing your thing.
Yes, absolutely. Because Alicia, in this world, not everyone will like what we have to say, what we have to offer, and you just have to do your thing. And I'll tell you something. Another thing that I have realized over the years is that a lot of the people who speak the loudest in the most negative way, if they were asked to do what you have achieved with the resources that you had or lack thereof, I'm almost certain they would not be able to do as good a job. So this is what I say to, to the entrepreneurs, to, those in corporate even who are trying their best, giving their all. That's all that is required. That is all that is required. Your best.
Beautiful. Elizabeth, how can our listeners connect with you?
The easiest way to connect with me is on my website, and that's Achievement and Excellence. It's all one word, and is spelled out, achievementandexcellence.com. And on there, it's all there. There's all my social handles. There's different ways that you can connect with me. So again, it's achievementandexcellence.com.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Elizabeth. It has been a very inspiring conversation.
It's an absolute pleasure, as I said, Alicia. Thank you for having me on your show, and I hope that your listeners benefit from our discussion.
I'm sure they did. And speaking of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.